Joining us now for more on this is Lincoln Ajoku. He's education specialist at UNICEF. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 7, Mr. Ajoku. Perhaps we just take it from that cliche, or is it that myth that education is a scam? What do you say? Is education really a scam?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on this day of International Day of Education. When someone says a statement like that, it speaks to a lot of the frustrations and maybe promises and ambitions that we have with respect to education. We know that education can do a lot of good. It does help with training. It does help with skills. It does help with opportunities. But when there are gaps between education, between basic education and tertiary education, and then getting a job and being able to provide for families, we can understand that frustration. So this International Day of Education is really a call for us to really examine how we are working to create an education system that truly works in Nigeria, that truly works for all Nigerians, and truly in a sense of education being a lifelong pursuit. And that it can be pursued for many different goals, whether it is gainful employment, but also for people to be citizens who contribute to the well-being and the overall growth of Nigerian society.
All right. Well, let's talk about the theme for this year's celebration of the International Day of Education, that to invest in people, prioritize education. How do we do this?
Yes. So there's significant investments, that can be made in people through education. And for us at UNICEF, this is really an opportunity to build upon the UN Secretary General's Transforming Education Summit, which was held last September in New York City. And the real purpose of this is really taking an opportunity to make the right kinds of investments from international agencies, from the government, and from civil society partners to help children, especially here in Nigeria, advance through basic education and move forward, whether it's vocational education, whether it's onto tertiary education, or whether it's into the workforce. And so that's one of the key areas. But in the perspective of this country, investing in education means really tackling the out-of-school children crisis and the out-of-school children situation to make sure that opportunities are provided for both formal and non-formal education for children to be able to attend school. It means improving learning outcomes because we can open as many school facilities and cut as many ribbons as we want, but if we don't have the trained teachers in those facilities, if we don't have the resources and the materials for children to learn, if a child could go through several years of primary and junior secondary education and still not be able to comprehend reading passages, then that system is not working. And then finally, it's really getting advocacy to increase domestic spending on education, increase opportunities for funding education programs, funding public education in Nigeria, and moving the base of funding, which is currently around 8%, where it's been for the last several years, to the international benchmark of 20% for funding for education in the country, public financing for education.
And of course, we know there are different sectors that are competing for the attention of government, especially with what the economy is saying. Let's talk about another aspect of this, and that is security. As it stands, many children and even their parents are scared and discouraged from going to and enrolling their children in school because of the incessant attacks on school facilities and the kidnappings we've heard about in recent time. What is your take on this? How do we come out of it all?
That's an important and critical observation. A school and a school environment has to be a safe space for children, for families, for the community. And unfortunately, what we do have sometimes are instances where school buildings are taken over by various non-state actor groups, where schools education is disrupted because of attacks on schools, where teachers have been attacked. And this is really tragic because these things have the net effect of discouraging children from attending school. But there are several things that we can be doing and that we are doing, and one of which is the Safe Schools Declaration. And this is something that is a nationwide effort. It is led by the Nigerian government. It is supported by partner agencies like UNICEF and other national and international NGOs to make sure that schools have the tools to ensure the safety and the environment for children who are attending, and also contingency plans in case situations happen where the school environment is insecure. But we also have to have alternatives for those instances where some communities are not safe enough to attend school because of insecurity, or as we saw unfortunately last year when we had flooding as a result, some would say connected potentially to climate change. So having things like digital learning, remote learning, such as the Nigeria Learning Passport program, these are things that are critical to helping children, providing alternatives to learn, even in circumstances of insecurity. Learning should
Indeed,
not
Mr.
stop.
Ajoku, there's so much to say on this subject matter, and I hope we have some other time to discuss this. And by the time we're discussing that there's some reasonable improvement, on the whole matter. Lincoln Ajoku is education specialist with UNICEF. Thank you for talking to us on TVC News at 7.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.